I thought I was just going to get massacred. I was going to get killed. I didn't want to go, so I grabbed onto my mom, and she was holding on to me, and I was pleading my mom just to keep me Muslim shum, Muslim shum. So I was just telling my mom, don't let go, because I thought he would have a little bit of humanity in him that he wouldn't take me. But no, he pulled me from my hair. He threw me in the back of his car, and he took off.
Welcome to the Silent Podcast. During the war in Kosovo in 1999, Serbia committed genocide. 20,000 women were raped. Among them was a 16-year-old girl that was taken away from her home by a Serbian police. She was raped, silenced, and told to forget. Years later, the same girl decided to speak. She stood in front of the United States Congress to testify about what happened to her and to thousands of other women in Kosovo. Her name is Vasfije Krasniqi-Goodman. Today she lives in Texas. She is a mother and an advocate. Vasfije, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Can you take us back at the April of 1999, the day police came in your house?
Yes, at that time it was April 14th of 1999. At that moment in our house, it was me and my mother, my aunt, she was our next door neighbor, and a couple of her young kids. I was outside of the home at the water well, because at that time the Serbian cut the water line, so we were taking water from the water well. I was outside getting water out, getting ready to eat dinner, and it was this loud knock at the door. At that time, you knew that when somebody was at the door with that kind of knock, it was trouble. It was nobody, it wasn't a company, it was somebody, it was trouble. So I went inside, I told my mom, hey, we need to open the door, somebody's out there. And when we went outside, there was a police officer in a police uniform, and he had stood up on our gate, and he was asking us to open the door. And we did. He was asking where it was my father and my brothers, and we told them that they were all in Germany. Even though one of my brothers, my second, he was a part of the Kosovo Liberation Army, we didn't tell him that. We just said that they were in Germany. And he said that he needed to see our IDs. Even though my aunt was there, she was an adult, he only wanted to see my mom's ID and my ID. So I went in there and got the IDs. He came behind me. I handed him the IDs over. We walked outside in the yard, and he looked at my mom's ID, and he gave it back to her. And when he looked at my ID, he said that she has to come to the police station, which was Preluja, where the Serbian police station was, to give a statement to the commander of police where my dad was and my brothers. And I remember my mom told him, don't take her, take me. And he looked at my mom and he said, no, she's a kid, she won't be able to lie. So we're going to, I'm going to take her. I grabbed onto my mom because I was terrified. I was only 16. I had no idea what was going to happen. At that time, the war's been going on for over a year. You heard about all the killings, all the massacres, but we really didn't hear much about the rape. So rape never crossed my mind. I thought I was just going to get massacred. I was going to get killed. I didn't want to go. So I grabbed onto my mom, and she was holding on to me. And I was pleading my mom just to keep me Muslim shum. So I was just telling my mom, don't let go, because I thought he would have a little bit of humanity in him that he wouldn't take me. But no, he pulled me from my hair. He threw me in the back of his car, and he took off. Leaving our house, he didn't go to a direction where the Serbian police station was. He turned around in a direction towards Pristina. That's where I knew that I was not going to give a statement, but something bad was going to happen because he was taking me in a different place. And he took me to a nearby Serbian village. I mean, at that time it was terrifying to be in enemy's village. You're only 16. You don't have anybody to protect you. You couldn't, even if you, I cried, I screamed, but nobody was going to hear you. Nobody was going to help you because they were all Serbians. And he had a light in a car, and he stopped by, if I'm not mistaken, it was either a church yard or a school, but it was a lot of Serbian people playing outside. It was a spring night. It was kind of getting dark, and he would lit a lighter next to my face, and he would tell him, "Vidiš šta imam," which that's the only word I remember that means "look what I have." And I was just crying, and yeah. A few minutes later, he left from the village, and he started driving towards Pristina, and he pulled into this unfinished house. He probably drove, I don't know, maybe 50 meters in a dirt road. It wasn't far, but it was unfinished small house. And outside of that house, it was just, I'm pretty sure they call it a corn stalk, kalamochit, they call it a corn
the
stalk.
corn. Yes,
Yeah, and I remember he threw me out there, and I started screaming, I started crying. That's when I knew that he was about to rape me. And I guess he didn't like that I was screaming, didn't want neighbors to hear or anybody to hear, so he put me back inside of his car in the front seat. And that's when he started raping me. I would beg him to kill me because I wanted to die with a bullet. That's all I wanted. I wanted to die. And he would say, "No, you will suffer more this way." And I remember he had a band-aid, not just a band-aid, but he said that the KLA Kosovo fighters had shot him. So he had this bandage all over his hand. It was band-aid out. And he will say that KLA did this to me, and now I'm taking advantage on you. And I would scream, I'll go in and out of consciousness. And he would say, "Don't scream or I'll take you to Chichavica," which, Chichavica is where my dad's from. And he would say there's more police forces and military forces that will rape you. So basically just be quiet. And when
you remember his face and all the details, even though this happened 20 years ago.
I'll never forget that face. I will never forget, like, even the details, the car, and how the window was broken and it had plastic over it. I remember the words that I heard during the whole ordeal for a few hours that they kept me. And so when he finished, then he went back into Babimaz, the Serbian town. It was an older gentleman. And he came out to the car and he took me. And yeah.
You have
And
mentioned, sorry to
go ahead.
interrupt you, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So this other person that came after, he was with this man, they were both of them that took you from the house, from your own house?
It was only the police officer that took me. But when the police officer finished raping me, and then he went over, they went to the convenience store. I'm assuming he went for alcohol because I could just smell the alcohol on him. I don't know. So he went in. After he went in, the old man came out, and then he took me at the gunpoint. He was wearing civilian clothes. He took me to this house and started raping me from behind while he had a gun at the back of my head.
You've mentioned that we were both of the same age during the war in Kosovo. And as you've mentioned specifically the same, me, and I was the older one and two of my sisters, we were asking my parents if they're going to massacre us or kill us by bullet, because we were hoping to die easier, like in the easiest way, not massacred. All we were here was maybe our parents knew about the rape, but they didn't want to mention that this might happen to us. And we didn't even think that what is happening, the thousands of women and young girls at our age, 16, 17, 15, even younger, were raped. What happened after? How long you've been at this room?
I was kept this whole time between both rapes for a few hours. I don't remember exactly how many hours it was. And I was left alone in the car. The older gentleman went back to the convenience store, and I was just sitting in the car and crying and just begging God, just take my soul. I don't want to live after what happened to me because I don't know what was going to come next. And it was.
And you were in the Serbian village, which even if you tried to escape, you would be among Serbs. So it was a fear. Did you think about escaping, and you knew that you are in the Serbian village?
There was no point of even trying to escape in Serbian village because they were all Serbians. Like I didn't think anybody will offer me any help. And I was sitting there, I remember, and I was just begging God to just take myself, because at that time, like, life didn't matter to me anymore. I just didn't want to be raped again. I didn't care how I died at that point. And it was a person with a military uniform, unarmed, that walked by the car. And I opened the door and I begged him in Albanian, please help me. And he went to the convenience store. Within minutes, both of my rapists came out of the car. I was sitting in the back seat. The officer was driving. The older man that was crippled, that's what I called him, because he was older and he was crippled. And they told me, we're gonna take you home, but don't tell anybody what happened to you. They said you were gonna go home. You're gonna say that you were at the police station, in a statement about where your dad is and your brothers, because we're gonna come and pick you up again. And
Where did you, they left you, they sent you back home, or what happened after?
they left me on we live very close to the street, to the highway, to the street. So they stopped the car and I got out. And I didn't run to the street to go to my house. I ran as fast as I could through the cemetery. And I was just like, God, how am I going to face people? Like, what am I going to do now? When I went to my uncle's yard, and my mom was sitting there with my uncle, with two of my neighbors, because at that time, everybody from the village had moved, the women and young children, to another village, to Stanosi. But my mom, she refused to go with the village. She said they took, because they called me Bucha, they took Bucha. I have no reason to live, so I'm just going to stay here. Whatever happens, happens to me, you know. And I remember just told them, please take me to, my oldest sister lived the next village. Please take me to Dada's house, because I was so terrified of them coming to pick me up.
They were not expecting you to come back home.
They did not expect me to come home. And one thing I do remember, that not even just them, but even throughout the years, that my mom would always mention, I would have rather you came home dead than the condition you came in. Because I was devastated, I was terrified, I was bruised, I was cut, I was just the condition, like I was in the state of mind that I was in. For my mom, she would have rather seen me dead than that stage that I was in at that time. And we went to my sister's house, and I briefly remember going in and out of conscious and what has happened, but I don't remember what happened afterwards that much. So 27 years later, I asked my older sister, I called her Dada, I am very close with her, and I told her, I just want to know what happened that night when me and my mom came to your house. Like, I want to know, because I don't remember. And she said, I don't know if I can talk about it. I said, please, like, I beg you. I cannot talk to my mom because my mom died 10 years ago. And I want to know. And I told my sister, I'll even come here with a therapist, to help you. And she decided to write a letter of that night and give it to me instead.
Can you share what she wrote on that letter?
She wrote on the letter and she sent it to me. And she explained everything, how when me and my mom went to her house, how they had to bathe me or wash me like I was a little child, and the bruises and the cuts and my chest and everything else that has happened to me. And it explains in that letter that whole night neither one of us slept. I slept between my mom and my sister. They laid because I was so terrified they were gonna come after me again. I just wanted, I guess, to be as tight as I could, and just, I don't know where, I didn't even know if I felt safe anywhere. I didn't feel safe, but they tried to protect me. But after that, my life everything changed. Everything changed. From the 90s until April 14th, I was terrified of death. But after April 14th, I wanted to die. The whole village knew that I was taken. Everybody. And then the very next day from my sister's house, KLA came over, they picked me up, and I reported my case, and it was hard to talk to. He was a commander, and he was our neighbor, and I was explaining to him and telling him everything that has happened. And then through the weeks until the war ended, I was losing conscious all the time. They were giving me medication, which I have no idea what they were giving me. I don't remember. I don't know for what, but my state of mind was really, really bad.
Were you scared that they would come back again to take you?
My biggest fear was that they were going to come back and take me again. Because you knew how we grew up at 16. You're not taught anything about sex or rape or anything like that. To me, it's inhumane what I experienced, and I was terrified of going through that again.
It's also after that, how the feeling, as you've mentioned, the whole village knew, and knowing the stigma that you carry. Did your family talked about that, or everybody knew what happened? How was it after the war? How did it feel later on facing people's reaction?
So when the war ended on June 10th, it was one of the happiest days of my life, because I knew, not that we're not going to die from the war. My thought was, we're not going to get raped. And my family, they knew my mom, my sister, my brother, the whole village. They knew you don't take a 16-year-old and bring her hours later. They knew what has happened to me. But nobody pointed their finger at me. And I guess what helped us, we did leave the village. We didn't return after the war because everything was destroyed, the house and everything. And then we moved to Pristina, so people didn't know me in Pristina, but the relatives.
So you've been carrying also the stigma of being judged. So the fact that you're mentioning that in Pristina they didn't know you, it was easier for you?
Yeah, it was easier for me because they didn't know. But the thing that until my mom died, the only thing you'll ever hear my mom say, she would always say, my poor daughter, what she went through. My poor daughter, what she went through. That's what she will tell people all the time.
I know, but our viewers, they don't know the mentality outside Western countries. And rape has been used and still is used, as we are seeing these days what is happening in Sudan, as a weapon of war. But not just what women go through, but it's also after the war, the post-war trauma of the society judging you, the stigma of being seen as a rape person, not as a victim. Before we go back to when you decided to speak up, how was it to live under that mindset?
For me, it was really bad because for once I did not know another victim. I didn't know another survivor. I guess I was fortunate and not fortunate. I moved to US in 2001, where I started talking more openly about it. My husband knew, my close circle of friends knew, his family, they knew what I had experienced. But I think, every time I would go home, every year, stuff like that, and visited aunts and uncles and everything else, I just wonder when they look at me, what went through their head. And then, of course, it didn't help my case much when I decided to marry an American at 18, just to escape Kosovo. You know why? Because I did not want to marry an Albanian and face what has happened to me, so I decided I'll just marry an American and I don't have to be judged.
When was the moment you decide to speak up and you came up at the national TV in Kosovo and share your story? What made you decide to speak?
I think it was a lot of factors, but the fact that the justice, because I fought for justice since 1999, as soon as the war ended. I reported my case, my family, the witnesses, they all testified. We wanted to seek justice. We didn't want revenge. We didn't just keep quiet, about it. And in 2017, I believe it was before Me Too movement, I decided, I was just feeling one day really sad and everything else. I decided to share a post on my Facebook, open letter to my rapist. And I got a lot of support even from people from back home. But what stuck to me was some Albanian woman saying I could write the same letter. And I was just like, I wonder if, how many survivors are in Kosovo. Because when I moved, yes, it's not like I really kept up with the news in Kosovo or what was going on, that often. But for years and years, I'll always Google and try to find an organization or somebody that I can talk to. And then when I found KRCT, which my brother, was the one that was part of the KLA, had already sent them the paperwork. He would always talk to me like, there's this doctor, she's of the survivors. When you come here, you need to meet her, but I just really never did. So then in 2017, I decided to reach out to KRCT. And I told them, hey, my name is Vasfije Krasniqi-Goodman, I'm a rape survivor, and I would like to talk about it. And they sent me their number. The very next day, I talked to Feride Rashidi. And I remember her asking me, like, are you sure this is such, like, we never had a survivor share her story with the public. They talk about it behind the curtains or change the name or, in the newspaper. Not with your face.
Showing the face.
Not with your face. I had the guts, or I had the courage. And you know what? I'm the youngest of 9 kids. I have 4 brothers. We're 5 girls. I did not ask anybody like, hey, do you have your permission to talk? I told them I'm going to talk because...
But before you decided to come up in public, did you talk to your family?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll talk with my family. Like, I mean, especially with, like, they knew everything that has happened to me.
No, I mean, did you told them that you want to come up and speak up at the public national TV and share your story?
Yes, that's what I was, I told them that I wanted to share my story. I didn't ask for their permission. And in Kosovo, the sister still needs brother permission for a lot of things. But to me, because I thought I owe it to myself, I owe it to other survivors to speak up. So when I decided to speak up, nothing was going to stop me. I talked to my daughters, they were okay with it. I talked to my husband, he was okay with it, and nothing else was going to stop me because I knew that my life was not going to get destroyed. I wasn't going to be disowned by my siblings. So, and I think what helped me, sorry, not getting another call, hold on.
Okay. No.
I think what helped me, both my parents were gone, because if my mom was alive, maybe it would have been very hard for her to hear me go public, I think. I think my mom would have taken it harder, but yeah.
How did you feel the day you talked at the national TV? Would you feel relieved after telling the whole story in front of everybody?
It was mixed feelings, but I felt terrified. I believe the interview was around 2 o'clock, and it was going to be aired at 10 p.m. And after I spoke, I was scared what was going to happen, what were people going to say, how was I going to get judged. I didn't know what was going to come after that. And I was like, how did I just come public with my story after all those years? Like, my life was fine. Why did I decide to do that? But then the next day, and after I got to meet so many survivors, it was the best thing I ever did for myself.
And not just for yourself, for thousands of other women and girls that were raped during the war. And they still, only 4,000 of them have reported their cases. What does prevent other women and girls from sharing their stories?
It's always the family, is a stigma, what comes from the family and the surrounding, like, I know survivors that they have great supportive husband and they support them. But they say, please don't talk, don't go public with your story because I don't know what my family is going to think. I don't know my parents, how they're going to judge you. So it's always the inner circle, the siblings. I think once your brothers support you, all the survivors will speak up. Because if the husband is going to disown you, then your brother will support you and you will have a place to go, right? But the stigma in Kosovo is so strong and it's such a taboo to talk about the sexual violence. They just don't want to talk.
Do you think since 2017, society in Kosovo changed?
Since 2018, after I spoke, yes, I think so. But you're a journalist, so you know this probably better than I do. Because back then, they really did not talk as much as they do now since I spoke in public.
You identified your rapist, reported everywhere to the local, national, international. They are still free. How does that make you feel?
It's when the verdict was issued and it said that yes, the rape did happen, but we believe we don't have enough evidence that those two are who committed the crime. And it's really hard because you're facing two perpetrators that they raped you, they did all that to you, and here in front of the law, they walk free because they believe their words are where they were 20 years ago more than you. So it's very, very hard not to have justice, but justice for me is not just a courtroom justice. It will help, but it's recognition from our country too. It is acknowledgement from Serbia that they did commit these crimes, and it's family support that, you know, I don't think families should see us as a symbol of shame or our country, because we're not a symbol of shame. It's not our fault. Everybody was held against their will. We have survivors that they were being raped while their husband was hiding in the attic. He didn't come downstairs to protect her because you knew they would have both just gotten killed, right? But he wanted to save his life, and he didn't protect her. Then he divorced her because of her being raped.
We have to explain this for the audience today. During the war in Kosovo, men and boys were hidden into the mountains, but women and girls and small children were staying in the home. So they were not protected because they were expecting that police will come and take the men. Now that's why those were the people being hiding into the men. So we were not protected. That's why this happened to 20,000 women and girls. These women and these girls are facing 26 years later the shame of being raped. Vasfije, you went and testified in front of the United States Congress. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I can. I wish we had a better outcome after that. I testified in 2019, but still it was a huge deal for me and the survivors to be able, stories to be heard at the U.S. Congress. I went to Parliament in South Korea. I talked there about Kosovo. I go all over telling the world what Serbians did, but even Kosovo has to do more. Like you just said, I grew up always protecting our brothers and our father because Serbians were after them. Nobody thought that it will be the women that they need the most protection and children. And yeah, you're right, they were hiding. Like I'm saying, we were left. For whatever reason, at 16, my family decided I was the chosen one to stay home with my mom and my youngest brother, while one was in the mountains fighting and the rest were in Germany seeking refugee. You know? So I think it's bad to say, and it's not like I said this in public often, but I think I paid my family's debt to Serbians, which is insane at 16 to go through what I went through, just for the reason that Serbian government hated my family, who my grandpa was, who my father was.
The fact that you testified at the Congress, so it was the international audience hearing your story, still no justice. What is your message to the international authority?
My message is to hold Serbia accountable for those crimes they have committed in Kosovo, because Serbia likes to play victim, even 27 years later they're playing the victim. But no, they're the perpetrators, they're the criminals, and Serbia has to face the past with honesty and bring the perpetrators in front of justice. And because you're making a mistake, what happened in Bosnia and Kosovo and Rwanda and other countries, Sudan, and everywhere, they have, from the very start, it's acknowledgement. They have to name a sexual violence as a crime from the start.
How do you define justice now, after this many years fighting for justice?
Courtroom justice failed me, that's what would bring my soul at peace. It's courtroom justice. But since that didn't happen with my case, it's never going to happen with my case. It will be to see Kosovo survivors get more support, being able to talk freely, and hopefully put an end to all wartime sexual violence and conflicts. Because ever since there's been a war, there is always sexual violence is being used. But when you don't have long sentence or don't even have any sentence in Kosovo, you only have two perpetrators behind the bars for 20,000 crimes committed. And other people, other criminal groups, they're going to use that because they know they can do it, and there's no punishment for that.
It's been recognized internationally that Serbia committed genocide in Kosovo. There were internationals who have all these numbers of these 20,000 women being raped during the war. Kosovo today is independent. Is Kosovo institution doing enough for these women?
They can do more. They can do more. It took us 15 years to recognize us. Until 2014, they didn't even acknowledge that you have a survivor of sexual violence. So they're doing somewhere, but so much more needs to be done. And we're talking about 20,000 survivors. And then when you do the math, less than 4,000 have getting help from organization or reported their case. Less than 2,200 have reparations. The numbers, they're not adding up. So to me, it's insane to have commission or refuse you and tell you you're not a survivor of sexual violence because you don't have enough proof 27 years later.
Can you share with us what other women have been dealing with stigma after the war in Kosovo, from their own family and from their society? What is more common struggle for them?
Stigma and being disowned. If you're a single woman, they would be disowned by parents, brothers. If you're married, your husband's going to divorce you. There's a story that a woman was raped. She was a mother of 3, and her husband was hid in the mountains. And when he came back, when the war ended, he found out he raped her in front of all their kids, 3 kids, and then he divorced her. That's why women, they don't want to speak up because, they're scared their family's going to be breaking apart. And even kids, they don't support their mothers when they know that they're survivors of sexual violence. They disown them. They leave them to live alone. The young kids, they go to live abroad and they won't speak to their mom just because of being survivors of sexual violence.
Many of them were excluded from their house and they live in the safe house in Kosovo, right?
There is few, but we would like to have a big, because if all the survivors decided to speak up, they will all be excluded and kicked out. Because the stigma, I'll be walking in Pristina and you will see people and say like, kill the Nunya, the raped one.
It is sad. It is sad because you were victims and instead of having support from our own people, you've been judged, even walking in the street.
And I guess for my case, thankfully, I have a lot of people that they do support me too, and they want to talk to me. Like I was at the event in The Hague yesterday and driving to Germany. Middle of the night, we stopped at the store, and there it is, this woman, like, you're in Germany, right? And she was like, oh my gosh, is this Vasfije? I'm like, yes. And she hugged me and she was like, do you live here? And I said, no, I'm just traveling through. So there's people that they do support. And a lot of times those are victims too. They just choose not to tell.
Yeah. But you became the first wartime rape survivor who spoke, and you carry on your shoulders the pain and of 20,000 women in Kosovo. You speak for them as well. I want to know more about your activism now. So you moved in the United States when you were 18. You have 2 daughters. You are an activist and you committed your whole life into this cause. Can you share with us a bit more on what you're doing right now?
Yeah, before 2018, I had a good life. I was raising my 2 daughters with my husband. I had a job. I had everything. I did not have to speak up. It did cost me speaking up because my life did change in some aspects after speaking up and becoming a public figure. It's kind of hard, and now I do activate for women's rights in Kosovo, for the survivors, for every story to be heard worldwide, for the world to know what the Serbians did, what survivors go through, to tell the government their survivors' needs and demands. But the most important is to fight for justice, because you cannot have all those cases and no justice being served. And then for all the families and for all the men and the brothers that you were hiding in attics, you were hiding in the mountains while your woman, while your sister was being raped, where do you get the guts to disown that member of your family when you, the only thing you could do, you could protect, but you would have gotten killed. If the honor was so important, get in front of the bullet, because it was not our fault. But they destroy your family's honor, your family's name, your communities, and everything else. So I say to the men that if the honor was so important, yes, you could have got in front of the bullet and die, and you wouldn't have to worry about your honor being taken away, because I don't see it as our honor being taken away. It was not our fault, and we're not going to pay for our family's name to be there to shine.
And you've mentioned you were aware immediately after the war that what you are going to face if you marry an Albanian. And it was for you much easy to marry an American who would understand your situation. Can you share with us how did it feel when you told your daughters before speaking up, when you decide to speak with your daughters about your story?
My daughters knew at a very young age, and I don't remember exactly how old they were when I told them, but they knew that I had experienced something very traumatic, because I suffered from PTSD for a very long time and everything else. But I knew for a fact that when I moved to Kosovo in 2010 and 11 to go through the court proceeding and everything else, when I reopened the case, my oldest one was very aware that yes, I was a victim, and my daughters, they're not ashamed of me. They talk like I'm their biggest hero. Like they talk about me like I'm a warrior. They're not embarrassed to have a mom who's a victim of sexual violence. And I wish all the kids in Kosovo felt like that way about their moms.
Many survivors say the pain never fully goes away. It just changes. What helps you find peace today?
The pain never goes away. Peace, I guess that different things help me find peace and try to live a normal life day to day. Because when you live for 19 years, the suffering is private, right? And now my suffering is out there in public. It's a little harder. But I try to find peace when I'm around my daughters and my friends and my family. With the survivors, it's just we have this close connection. I have 4 sisters. I'm not in need of another sister because we're plenty, we're all too many. But when you have a survivor and we have that sister bond, it's something that for me I will cherish forever. And I have sister survivors from all over the world that we share our stories, we cry together, we laugh, we understand each other better than anybody. Because when I'm talking to a survivor, I don't have to tell her why I'm in a bad mood. She just knows why I'm in a bad mood. If I'm to talk to my sister, she's going to know, well, what happened, because the pain, you don't understand somebody's pain unless you went through the same thing.
As I said, carrying all this in your shoulders, you also gave a lot of courage to other women to feel comfortable and speak and tell and report their story. But Vasfije, when you think about yourself at 16 years old, if you could say something to yourself today at that age, what would you say?
Speak up sooner and don't suffer in silence. Don't suffer alone. That's what I would have told myself at 16.
Vasfije, I want to thank you for everything you're doing, for courage that you had years ago to speak up, for the horrible thing that happened to you during the war. And I understand I've been the same age as you during the war in Kosovo, and you are doing so much for all these women, and you are committing your life to this cause. Thank you from my heart.
Thank you so much.
In a world that promises justice, Vasfije's story is proof that promises alone are not enough. Her rapists are still walking free. Yet Vasfije refuses to disappear into silence. She faced her fear, named her truth, and demanded justice. Not only for herself, but for every survivor whose story remains untold. As long as perpetrators are free, peace remains unfinished.